Hello and welcome back to the Unmute Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Charity Hatterley. With Thanksgiving around the corner, it is a time to connect, celebrate, and share. But it can also test us when differing opinions and values come to the table. So instead of dodging those moments of difficult conversations, what if we leaned in with grace and purpose? In today's episode, I'm sharing 3 practical tips to help you navigate tough conversations without sacrificing connection. These are tools you can use not just during the holidays, but every day at work, at home, and in your community. So, if you're ready to turn conflict into connection and lead by example, then let's dive in. Now, before you dig into a conversation, and it could be with family, it could be at work, it could be anywhere you go, first check your own intentions. Before you even begin, ask yourself, am I here to connect or to convince? Because I'll tell you, most of the tension in tough conversations comes from fighting to be right. So if you are just headstrong about convincing someone about your opinion and that you are right and they are wrong, it will destroy that connection, first of all. And second of all, there's a phenomenon known as the backfire effect. And this comes into play when people feel like someone is trying to convince them. Then they dig their heels in even more. So whether it's politics, religion, or who gets the last piece of Aunt Thelma's award-winning pie, focus on connecting rather than convincing, and that'll get you far better results. And of course, deepen your connection. And remember this, everyone is right from their own perspective because their experience shapes their reality. So if your goal is to connect, then start with curiosity. One great tool for that is asking clarifying questions. So here's an example. If someone says, I can't believe that you think that way, instead of firing back with your view on this or how idiotic theirs is, you can simply respond with, oh, that's interesting. What makes you say that? Or you can say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about what makes you feel that way. This approach invites dialogue rather than defensiveness. And you might be pleasantly surprised to find a fellow sibling in humanity on the other side of that conversation rather than an opponent, which is what it feels like when you fight to be right. And the interesting thing is, when your intent is to convince, then you destroy connection and your ability to influence. However, when your intent is to connect, you actually open to the door to be able to be more influential. So connect, don't convince. Start there. Now for the second secret, let me share with you another frustration in conversations. It is when it's a misalignment in the type of conversation you're having. For example, think about a time when you shared about your day with your spouse and you just wanted to unload and just express what was going on. And then they jumped in and started giving you advice on how to fix it. We've all been there, right? And it is frustrating because you did not want advice. You just wanted them to listen and understand. Or maybe your child came up to you and began unloading about their day and you jumped in and gave them some really helpful advice. But instead of thanking you for your generous wisdom and help, they complain that you're not even listening and they storm off. I know I've been that parent or the spouse trying to give advice when all they needed from me was a listening and compassionate ear. And the tricky thing is, we don't jump in with advice to drive them away. We do it because we love them, right? And we want to help them. The problem is not your wisdom or lack thereof. It's that each of you is having a different type of conversation. So what does that mean? Well, Charles Duhigg, the author of The Power of Habit, and he's got a new book about super communicators. And in this book, he highlights that research shows that conversations typically fall into 3 categories. There's the practical, emotional, and social. So you'll recognize these as I go along. So practical conversations, these are the ones where you jump in to solve the problems, right? You're giving and receiving advice. They typically involve a clear, logical discussion, aiming at finding a solution to specific issues or challenges. It could be anything from how to fix a car or changing your blinker fluid, or maybe somebody needs help with a relationship challenge or figuring out a budget, whatever it is. The goal of a practical conversation is to address a specific need or task with some actionable steps. Now, the second type of conversation to be aware of is the emotional conversations. So this involves expressing feelings and creating a safe space for someone to share their emotions. And the focus is on understanding and validating emotions rather than offering solutions or advice. And examples of these are when your child just needs to unload about their day, or you're going through a tough time and just need someone to listen to you. The goal of an emotional conversation is just to gain support and empathy. It's not advice. It's not to fix. It's just to be there for that person. And the third type of conversation, these are social conversations. These are for building casual connections and enjoying light-hearted interactions. And basically, it's like small talk. And the goal in a social conversation is really just to socialize, get to know each other, enjoy each other's company. So, if you're venting about your emotions and the other person jumps in with solutions, it feels dismissive. And even if their intentions are good, it can be so frustrating. And also, if someone wants advice, but you're just offering sympathy, they may feel that you don't even care. So one way to get clear on the type of conversation a person is having is simply to ask, what do you need right now? Or you could say, do you need to be helped, heard, or hugged? These are simple questions that help you understand what type of conversations is needed at the moment so that you can adjust and either give advice, give sympathy, or just kind of chit-chat if that's what they need. Now, this doesn't mean that you ignore your needs or just show up for that other person to the detriment of yourself if you are needing a different type of conversation. If there's something specific you want out of it, then just let them know. And you can say something like, hey babe, I'm coming in hot right now. I just need to vent for like 5 minutes or so, but then I do want to get advice from you about how to this or that. It's interesting because sometimes we don't even realize what we need until someone asks. So if you're not sure what someone needs, do not make assumptions. Just ask them, well, hey, what do you need right now? So that is secret number 2. Get clarity on the type of conversation that you're having. Now, the third secret to having difficult conversations is to get curious and listen deeply. I know I already referred to getting curious and asking clarifying questions, but I'm bringing this up again because curiosity is the antidote to judgment. When you approach a conversation and you're genuinely curious, it naturally disarms defensiveness. So you can ask open-ended questions like, what does that mean to you? Or, can you help me understand where you're coming from? This shifts the dynamic from me against you to, hey, let's explore this together. Think about how amazing it feels when someone truly lets you be you without judgment, without criticism, but with genuine interest and empathy. It's these moments that we feel seen, valued, and understood, and that is connection. Connection is vital to our well-being. This connection can transform the way that you perceive yourself and the world around you. And it encourages personal growth and resilience. And one key tip to remember is that we are all hybrids of our parents' conversational styles. What that means is that there are certain words and underlying meanings in your family that do not carry the same weight or meaning in your spouse's family, and vice versa. Or in your cousin's family, or in your second cousin's dog's best friend's neighbor's owner's family. So when someone says pricks your heart, instead of making assumptions about what they meant, it helps to ask, can you tell me more about what you meant by that? And most of the time you'll find that either their intent was not to offend you at all, but if it were, it gives them an opportunity to examine their words more closely. So with that said, there are some people out there who are just not going to engage in conversation. They're hurting so badly that they can't see past their own eyeballs and they just spew poison. If this is the case, one trick is to just simply say their name confidently. Say, hey, Jimothy, and that jolts them back to reality long enough for you to say, hey, enjoy your meal, I've got to go, and then you can walk away. Wish them well, pray for them if you will, but it's not worth wasting their time. Now, here's a bonus tip. This is something that is called parts work. Sometimes conversations do hit a nerve. You might say something like, part of me really appreciates having this conversation, but another part of me really feels judged, and it makes me want to shut down and disengage. So can we refocus the topic back on this? And what happens is when you acknowledge that your internal conflict is going on, this can reduce the tension and invite the other person to do the same. They may be feeling conflicted as well, and which is why they're pushing even harder. But if you call that out, it helps them get out of the fight to be right mode. It helps both of you do that so that you can come back and focus on the topic and have an engaging discussion. Even if you have differing views, I think that's great. I think it's important for us to learn how to have civil discourse and to communicate deeply and even passionately with people who don't live or believe the same as we do. I think it's important to navigate them in a respectful manner. In conclusion, I believe that we're all pieces of the same puzzle, and when we approach each other with curiosity and compassion, and especially during the holiday season or the election season, whatever season it may be that you're finding yourself in difficult conversations, it could be the season of Tuesday, we can uncover solutions and insights that might not otherwise be seen. So this Thanksgiving and throughout the year, remember to first check your intentions. Are you intending to connect or convince? Second, align your conversation type. Does that person or do you need to be heard, helped, or hugged? And 3, stay curious. Ask deeper questions and listen with your heart so that you can connect rather than focusing on dividing. And remember, as much as you want to be heard, they do too. Now, I'll leave you with this quote from Brené Brown that reminds us that when we take the time to truly get to know someone, it becomes much more difficult to harbor negative feelings toward them. She said, quote, "People are hard to hate close up. Move in," unquote. So, my friend, let's move in this Thanksgiving and be the bridge builders that our families need. Thank you for joining me on the Unmute Yourself podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with a friend or family member who could use a little help navigating difficult conversations. And remember to subscribe so that you'll never miss an episode. Now, I'm curious, what strategies do you use to handle tough conversations? Come visit me on Instagram, send me a DM, and let me know what you thought of the podcast and what more you'd like to hear. So until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep unmuting yourself.